Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 19, Sensing Tsunamis. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, where do tsunamis happen? In this lesson, students will look for Earth features on a globe. They will use ArcGIS, an online map, to locate mountain ranges, earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis to identify patterns among their locations. Students figure out that maps can be used to locate patterns in Earth's features. Major mountain ranges, earthquakes, volcanoes, and ocean structures occur in patterns. Tsunamis happen in oceans near where earthquakes and volcanic eruptions happen. Students make connections to the storyline by thinking about how understanding where tsunamis happen can help us figure out the locations that are more likely to be at risk of a tsunami and what causes them. There are several opportunities for ELA and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 19 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 3 to 4 days to complete. You'll begin the unit and Lesson 1 Engage by introducing the anchoring problem. You'll ask students if they know what a tsunami is and invite them to share any responses. Be sure to see the noted opportunity to attend to equity, should the provided anchoring problem not be compelling for your students. Students will find the anchoring problem more interesting if they can connect to it personally. If you want to change the anchoring problem for your context, keep the following questions in mind. Is it going to be particularly engaging to students? Have my students shown an interest in the new problem? By researching online, you can find another anchoring event to use as the subject of the unit. Though focusing on another tsunami event might be easiest, it is possible to focus on another earthquake or volcanic eruption that encourages students to think about patterns of Earth's features, waves, and using technology and circuits as a warning system that reduces the impact of a natural hazard. Is it going to motivate students to want to explain patterns on maps in locations of mountain ranges, ocean trenches, earthquakes, and volcanoes, movement and structure of waves, how people can reduce the impact of natural hazards, and how people can digitize information to transmit it over a long distance. You'll then read Tsunami as a class. Use the Read Aloud guide and the provided questions while reading. You can then post and discuss the tsunami vocabulary card. You'll show students images and a video about tsunamis in Japan and Indonesia to give them information and compare the impact on both countries. You'll allow students to turn and talk to discuss their observations about the book and the images. Once students have their questions, you will guide them in creating categories for their questions on the driving question board using the steps provided in your teacher guide. Once categories are created, guide the class in collapsing categories into bigger categories that have closer alignment to the driving questions provided in the unit. Do not answer student questions at this time or correct their thinking. Students will explore their questions and explain this problem throughout the unit. Here are examples of driving question boards from other K-5 units. They depict the students' questions in categories, some along with a drawn model from the unit. Some driving question boards are simple lists of questions or groups of sticky notes posted on chart paper. Teachers and students can manipulate and move around questions and label categories together. You'll ask students about a tool they might use to know where tsunamis might happen and use students' ideas to define the terms map and globe. You can post and discuss the map and globe vocabulary cards. You'll then put students into groups and pass out the inflatable globes. You'll have students locate Japan and Indonesia on the globe and observe what features of Earth are found there and across the globe. You may wish to have them identify these by writing them down on Post-its and sticking them on the globe. You'll ask students how they could figure out when and where tsunamis happen. For the Explore portion, you'll introduce students to ArcGIS and tell them that this is an interactive map that allows us to explore, analyze, and understand geographic data, like where tsunamis happen. You'll show students ArcGIS mountain range map. Students will use this map to get practice using this online tool and review using maps by finding patterns related to the mountain ranges, earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanoes. Throughout the investigation, you can post and discuss the legend, mountain range, volcano, and earthquake vocabulary cards. You'll divide your students into groups and have them use the Where Do Tsunamis Happen student journal page. You'll review the instructions together and circulate while students analyze the ArcGIS natural events map. In the Explain portion of the lesson, students will engage in a class discussion. You'll invite them to gather and analyze their observations around their map analysis. You'll use the provided questions to guide the discussion around where do tsunamis happen. The goal of this class discussion is to have students share analysis of the data and describe patterns of where tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanoes happen. You will use the discussion to create the Lesson 1 summary chart. From the discussion, students should understand that if we understand where tsunamis happen, we can figure out the locations that are more likely to be at risk of a tsunami. We might also be able to figure out what causes them. During the discussion, you can post and discuss the natural hazard vocabulary card. You'll then have students develop an initial model of how the 2011 Japanese tsunami might have formed on the initial model of Japanese tsunami student journal page. You'll invite students to share their models and explanations with the class. For the Elaborate portion, you'll ask students questions about what else they could look at to learn more about where and why tsunamis happen. Using student ideas, you'll develop a definition of an ocean trench and post the ocean trench vocabulary card. You'll then have students work in pairs using the Ocean Trenches student journal page. You'll also revisit the anchoring problem and have students look at Japan on the ArcGIS map and locate ocean trenches nearby. Students can go back and revise their model to include how ocean trenches might be related to the formation of tsunamis. For the Evaluate portion, you'll have students do the Patterns on Earth Quick Check student journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient students back to the driving question board. Ask them, what did we learn about where tsunamis happen? Do we have any new questions to add to our driving question board? By the end of this lesson, students will have analyzed maps to discover patterns of the locations of earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis, developed an initial explanatory model of what causes a tsunami. In Lesson 2, students will explore how waves are formed, patterns of wave structure, and energy transfer. For the optional Extend portion, you can provide students with access to a simple plate motion simulation and have them use the simulation to model what landforms are created and what events occur when plates push together, pull apart, or slide past one another. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.